Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Fanbase Press's discussion on the continuing evolution of the Alien franchise in the comic book medium. My name is Bryant Dillon. I'm president and co-founder of Fanbase Press, and I will be your moderator for this discussion. Now, before we dive into the discussion itself, I do want to introduce our fantastic panel for this panel. First up, we have Barbara Randall Kesel, an award-winning writer and editor of comic books whose bibliography includes work for DC Comics, Marvel Comics, CrossGen, Image Comics, and Dark Horse Comics. Barbara served as editor for Dark Horse's Alien 3 adaptation, Aliens Genocide, and Aliens Hive, and wrote the one-shot Aliens vs. Predator Booty. Barbara, welcome to the conversation.
Hi.
Great to have you.
It sounds like I've done so much more than it feels like I've done.
I think you're underrepresenting yourself, but we'll get into all of that. Next up, we have Phillip Kennedy Johnson. He's an Eisner-nominated writer and musician whose comics work include or have been published by DC, Marvel, Boom Studios, Archaea, IDW, Aftershock, and Scout Comics. And of course, Phillip is also the writer on Marvel's very first Alien comic title. Phillip, great to have you as part of this panel. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me, man.
And last but not least, we have Livio Ramondelli. He's a comic artist and writer whose credits include illustrating Transformers and creating the original science fiction series The Killock for IDW Publishing. And of course, as Livio knows, he and I have had a ton of alien-focused conversations. Livio, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and turn to our discussion. From the critically acclaimed comic adaptation of the original Alien film by Archie Goodwin and Walt Simonson, published by Heavy Metal magazine in 1979, to the golden age of Alien comics published by Dark Horse Comics from 1988 through 1999. The Alien franchise has been a staple in the comic book market and local comic book shops for over 3 decades now. While Dark Horse did relaunch their Alien titles in 2009, releasing new stories through 2020, including those incorporating the mythology added by Ridley Scott's prequel film, Prometheus, a new era of Alien comics is now upon us. In 2021, Marvel Comics became the current stewards of the Alien IP and began releasing their first comic series set in the Alien universe. In this panel, we hope to take a look at how the Alien franchise has evolved and adapted in the comic book form over the past 30 plus years, and seek to understand and explore why these stories and the creature known as the perfect organism has flourished in the sequential art form. So stay frosty, my fellow panelists. We're going to go ahead and dive into this discussion. We'll start somewhere easy, though. I just want to give everyone sort of a taste of how everyone feels about this franchise and this IP. So I would like to start with everyone's favorite film in the franchise, and do you have a favorite Alien or Aliens comic? And Barbara, I'll let you start us off.
Well, I'm biased. My favorite comic in the series is Aliens Genocide, because it's one that, obviously I was involved with and had a lot of fun with, but loved the crazy high concept of. Sure. And my favorite film is Aliens, definitely the battling bitches,
Excellent. Phillip, how about for you?
Oh man, for the movie, I mean, the first 2 are both 10s out of 10, and it's hard to choose. I love 3 a lot too. And I hate this question. I've got to go with the first one because I can't even imagine anymore seeing it for the first time. But I mean, try to just put yourself there where you hit all the stuff that is now just so baked into our culture of what's
Sure.
there, and you're seeing it for the first time. And for a while, every 5 or 10 minutes, you're just getting your mind blown over and over again. Like when you first see the inside of the derelict, and then you see the space jockey, and you see the eggs, and you see Kane's that thing on his face, and the dinner scene, like all that stuff. Every single one of those is like a huge holy shit moment where you're like, everything has changed, just one after the next, after the next, after the next. So I mean, even though the second film is probably just from a craft perspective better, as far as like emotional investment in the characters, and the action's incredible. That first one, it just had such a huge impact. I've got to go with the first one. As far as comics, I really love Alien Salvation by Gibbons and Mignola. I think that's kind of a high bar to meet. And also Aliens Labyrinth was sets a high bar as far as just how upsetting these books can be. It's just horrifying and gross, and it's just really that's kind of the high watermark for me as far as the horror aspect of those books.
Excellent. And Livio, how about for you?
Yeah, I think in terms of movies, I always liked Aliens the most kind of growing up, but then over recent years, like as I kind of come to really, really appreciate Ridley more, like it's probably tied with the first movie now. And I think it's amazing too, like kind of what Philip was saying, that the second movie has all this emotion and the first movie is really pretty cold throughout, you know, but to have two movies that are that different in the same franchise and both that great is pretty phenomenal. You know, I can't think of another series where the tone kind of shifted. Maybe Star Wars and Empire, where the tone is a lot darker in the next one, but like it's like inverted on Alien. But yeah, those are probably tied for me. In terms of comics, maybe the first Alien versus Predator series, the Dark Horse did, just because I vividly remember how cool it was to kind of build off the ending of Predator 2, the notion that predators were going to fight aliens. How cool that concept seemed. So, yeah.
What I always loved about Aliens is that you have the perfect sequel, because it's still in the same world and all that, but you've got two very different movies. You have a horror movie followed by a war movie. And usually when people did sequels, they follow the exact same train of what had come before.
Right.
So that sort of established a model for people for, oh, okay, we can expand our approach to how we're doing a movie based in this, you know, thinking of it conceptually as a universe.
Well, and there's also, I don't know that everyone will agree with this statement, but I've always looked at these two films, and I guess Ridley Scott and James Cameron got like they're sort of the parents of the Alien franchises. As I feel like Ridley really brought this world, this like lived in sci-fi that he kind of leached off George Lucas a little bit. But he also brought in Giger and all the creatures as well. He had some of the development for Ripley, but most of that, who we know as the modern Ripley, comes from what she goes through in the second film and who she becomes in the second film, which is really fascinating too, going forward, that you have a sequel that adds so much to the story. It's not just the same character going through, you know, as you said, Barbara, similar things. It's a real advancement in who that character is and who she becomes.
There's also, you know, talking from the woman point of view, the first one is the typical horror trope of, oh, look, the girl loses her clothes during the movie, so it's all sexually exciting, and in addition to, you know, her being a badass, etc., for people. And then in the second one, she gets to be a character. She gets to be a woman, as opposed to just the girl in the horror story.
It's a fair point. Although one thing I will give her credit for in the first film, especially having lived through a global pandemic, is she respects the rules of quarantine. It's a really important thing. If people just listen to Ripley in that first 20 minutes of the film, there's not much of a film after it. They're like, oh,
and she's smart and tenacious.
Yeah, about that. So I recently had the opportunity to show somebody, like the fiance of a good friend of mine had never seen them, and I was like, oh my god, you gotta show. I insisted, like, you've got to show her these movies. And she was like, oh, everyone's so stupid. I'm like, look around you, are you crazy? Like, this is the most plausible movie ever now. Like, we've left that way behind. Like, everyone's acting exactly as you see in real life. You've got Ripley with the brain and everyone else, like Ripley with the brain and Ash, who like with the you know, political hidden motivation to screw everyone, and then everyone else. So this is completely the world we're living in.
Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
Well, I've
you're
always
totally right about. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Phil.
To tack on to what Barbara was saying, and I totally respect what you said about Ripley's portrayal in the first one, and then in the second one, becoming a full character with emotions and backstory. It's that's the big question, right? Like, between Alien and, I feel like her character kind of represents the difference between those movies. The first one is all about it's more focuses on the world building and the visual horror of it and all that, and the second one is all about character. And I mean, the second one is probably the stronger film, just, you know, as far as just objectively the better movie. But the first one just makes the world so big, and you realize there's this thing out in the cosmos we've never known about, and so it's just like world building versus character, you know, kind of all boils down to that. But Ripley definitely becomes what she is in that second film.
Well, and the purpose of the characters too, because in the first one, they're basically game pieces moved around on a board on a game of who survives. And on the second one, you are getting into more characterization across the board as, you know, fits into that story.
Sure. Well, I would love to hear from each of you what really, I think we've heard some of these, in this discussion right now, but what really attracts you to this franchise and this, the mythos, that have been created around it. How do you, what elements do you feel really like draw you in? And are those elements represented in the Alien comics that you have seen, and how? So Philip, I'll go to you first this time.
The things that drew me into the Alien franchise initially, probably, if I remember back when I was a very young child, are the iconic H.R. Giger design. As just the look of the alien is so horrifying, and the gross life cycle, just the way that it reproduces is so invasive and upsetting. It really just typifies. It just is the best version of body horror, in my opinion. So that's what made it so incredible for me. Like without Giger, there's no Alien, in my opinion.
Sure.
And to me, the success and failures of a lot of the books that have come since then have been how much they've leaned on that design, and how much they've gotten away from it. Like, as far as, obviously the writing matters too, but just visually, when you see the sci-fi takes that kind of ignore that, those are the ones that don't work as well for me, I guess. The ones that really embrace the look of the alien, and the feeling, the feeling of Giger's work, really just make it feel like it should. I don't know. It's not just a matter of layouts and scripts. For me, it's just a matter of, does it feel like the work of H.R. Giger? So that's a big part of it for me. And even when I was a kid, even before, so Alien 3 was the moment where it establishes that when the facehugger takes different organisms,
Right.
it makes different iterations of the alien. That's when we saw that for sure. But that's even like before that movie came out, I was already asking myself those questions. Like, what if, the alien kind of looks like a human? What if it went on to, a snake, or whatever? And I would just sit in the back of the class and ignore whatever was happening, and just make up versions of different aliens that might be out there,
Sure.
And so when Alien 3 was made specifically for me, is like this love letter to this kid that nobody knows about. So yeah, I just love the just the elegant versatility of it. Like, I love all the possibilities that are out there because of the design of how it recreates, and how it relies on different organisms, and how that's why it's the perfect survivor, because it's piggybacking on all these different things around the universe.
That's a great point. Livio, what are your thoughts on what attracts you to the franchise, and do you think that's represented in the comics you've read?
Yeah, I think the Alien universe has such a sinister sort of aesthetic to it, where most science fiction has some level of optimism about, oh, let's go explore the galaxy and see the wonders of it. And the Alien universe is like, don't go out there. Like, everything, like even in the first movie, before things go bad, even the Nostromo design is pretty sinister, just like the corridors look threatening, and they're perfectly fine at the beginning. But
and they're not even out there exploring. It's like, oh, hey, here's a bunch of truckers doing their job, and they're like, this is shit.
Yeah.
Can I get paid more?
Yeah, and then if you do see something wondrous like the space jockey, even that is terrifying. You're stunned at the grandeur of what you're seeing. You're also like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, the designs of that I think are great. Things like even beyond the xenomorph, like the power loader, there's such iconic sort of science fiction designs in that universe. And I think the comics have done a good job. Like, I think comics naturally have sort of an unlimited budget. So if you want 20 power loaders fighting, you can do that. It's all about the pencil mileage of however the artist wants to draw, So I think generally the comics have done a really good job, the ones that I've seen. Like, I was a huge fan of Defiance, the one that Tristan Jones drew. I thought he was a really great artist for that book. Like, I thought he really captured the world a lot.
Definitely. Barbara, what are your thoughts on this? What attracts you to the
I think not so much attracts me, but attracts everybody. Part of the visual genius of Aliens is, up till then, science fiction included sex in the form of rockets and docking and, tight pants and miniskirts. This is all of the visual design of Alien is everything having to do with sex, pregnancy, and all that made into horror. So you're tapping into the primal on two levels that gets people's attention. And then if you follow that up with good world stuff and good characters, you completely have them hooked.
Definitely. Very true. Barbara, I would love to ask you, I mean, given your time at Dark Horse Comics, what can you tell us about what the publisher's approach was to creating new stories within this alien universe? And can you share any standout memories you have from those experiences helping add to the mythology?
Well, the whole sort of Dark Horse cycle in regards to Alien was first with Verheiden and Nelson coming in with this first new story where,
Right.
okay, up until then in comics, if anything had a logo, it was often considered almost throwaway, that the title would sell it. So they were good if the people working on them were invested in making them good, but the companies themselves weren't behind it and didn't care. Dark Horse took a different tact after the first Aliens, and decided, okay, for each of these franchises, we'll build a world Bible. We'll make it as real as the movie it came from. We will add to that mythos, as opposed to just going, oh, take any comic, put a, licensed skin over it and send it out the door. So there was, for each of the licenses, there was a lot of respect given to what's everything that has been established so far and where can we go from here? And it didn't hurt. You had Randy coming up with Aliens versus Predator and being excited about being genuinely wanting to go do a good story, being interested in the material and wanting to carry it forward. So in all of these, everybody involved was attempting to add something to the mythos to really play off that specific movie and license as opposed to anything else. And that's the absolute key between quality and stuff that just gets happening. that was a phrase in English, wasn't it? Is that if the people involved are respecting and caring about their material and into it, and of course you're reaching the point where all the fans of these films have reached the age where they're now producing the material, so they want to do the stuff that would delight their inner 8-year-old and not just put the stamp on it and send it out the door. So every one of those from Star Wars, you see Aliens, Star Wars, RoboCop, Terminator, Predator, all the licenses we did, you see somebody trying to come in and add something to it that fits, that is worthy of inclusion next to the original movies. And that's when, of course, when we'd find the holes in them too. So.
Hey, Barbara, can I ask you about working on the Alien 3 adaptation? Because
oh my God,
that movie was obviously a famously hard production. What was the adaptation process of that? Did you even have like a final script to go off?
No, we did not have a final script. The last issue of the Aliens 3 adaptation got done because I sent Christopher Taylor to the movies in New York as many times as it took to sketch out and transcribe the end of the movie because they would not release it to us. We had multiple different scripts along the way. So first it was monks, then it was, then it was a soldier. It kept changing. So Aliens 3 is traumatic to me in a way it wasn't to you guys. What the hell is this story about? What's going on? What did we do wrong? Then we'd send pages in and we get notes back that something was wrong because of some change they had that they wouldn't release imagery to us about. So there was a lot of guessing.
Oh my God.
The only other nightmare as bad as that was working on Young Indiana Jones, where I'm doing stories based in a universe where they won't release to me the content of what they're doing, but they ended up sending me down to Lucas's compound there to spend time in the library where the librarians could bring me the same reference material they'd given to the guys in the shows. So again, you're guessing what things look like. But Aliens 3, I've never that was a new one. I'd never had to send the artist to the movie theater to basically rip off the movie.
Wow. Amazing. What amazing way to accomplish that. What you said, Barbara, really, because I was reading those comics as a teenager as they were coming out, and it does speak to like why I think I was drawn into what Dark Horse was doing with Aliens, because I remember even just two of the titles that you worked on when we're talking about Aliens Hive and Aliens Genocide. I remember there being this thing established where it was like, oh, there's this royal jelly that the queen has that people can become addicted to, and they get like lost in this drug. And we had that sort of established in Aliens Genocide. And then we had a character in Aliens Hive who was dealing with addiction to that consistently.
Did you have the Cyber Antics book?
I did not, but I wanted it so bad. I would see little advertisements about it and everything. Yes.
Oh. If I end up with a duplicate, I'll send it to you. I know I have
That's
at least
very
one.
kind.
If it turns out I have two. What we did with Aliens Hive, there was a scientist. So we did the picture book that introduced the story of ants that related to what was going on with in the story.
Yes, and the android xenomorph that he was
Mhm.
using to sort of raid alien hives, which was a
Mhm.
really incredible concept as well. That popped up again a couple times after that as well in the comics. Philip, you're doing something similar with your series right now at Marvel, where you're establishing some new mythology with a character who had was impregnated with a chest burster, and now is discussing in the latest issue that's been released about how there is some ramifications of going through this process, that there's a voice in his head, that something that he feels something out there alien is calling to him, which I found really interesting as well. And so I would love if you could tell us a little bit about your experiences, tackling it through the Marvel perspective, and if there are any mandates or guidance that you can share about what that publisher, how they want to approach this franchise and the stories they're telling in it.
Yeah, sure. I was given very little guidance from the beginning, actually, and I was comfortable with that because I knew so much. I was just such a super fan of alien stuff. I've been training for this race my whole life. And I didn't need anybody's help. But as far as mandates, there was nothing. And they did say, before I'd really gotten started, they were like, "We love you to pull from the Cameron movie." And what I took from that was, we like the space alien or space marine thing. It's
Right.
cool looking. And it's, that's been done so very much. And I was a little wary of wearing that out. Like, it's just been seen so much, and
Sure.
it's awesome, and that's why. I mean, it's cool. The imagery of the space marine versus the xenomorph is super cool. But I didn't want to make another book like that just felt like another video game, soulless thing. So I really wanted to. I knew I wanted to use it in some way, but I didn't want to just be another Cameron ripoff. So there was that. They said they went the Cameron thing, which I ended up pushing back against a little bit. And they also said, you can use other characters if you want to, but if you can not use Michael Biehn, that'd be best, because apparently he's a real pain in the ass. But you can just
I was going to ask Philip, when you're working on this stuff now, how much leeway do you have in terms of using like props and vehicles? Because when I've done licensed stuff in the past, I found like Hasbro and Transformers have been cool with basically use anything, do whatever you want. But then I did some Star Wars covers for Lucasfilm, and it was like, oh, if you want to include a lightsaber, that's 6 rounds of approvals. Like, I'm curious how the Alien franchise is right now. Is it?
No, they want that. They want to see stuff from previous movies and things. So we've been using a ton of that. And I mean, I haven't really been asking their opinion about it. I'm just kind of putting in stuff. I just want to see things that we've seen before, but in a lot of cases, a little bit different. So if, for anyone who's read the book, they're not really space marine, not colonial marines. They are mercenaries working for Weyland-Yutani, but it's a very similar kind of gig. Basically, we're slow throughout the arcs that are coming. One of the undercurrents of the story is that we're seeing Weyland-Yutani becoming so big and powerful that it's like we're starting to threaten sovereignty of Earth nations. Like they're so big, they're outgrowing the concept of government.
Philip, are you allowed to? Does the Dark Horse material exist as far as they're concerned, or is that deleted, or are you allowed to pull from it?
It's not. Well, that's the thing. It's kind of like the Star Wars thing, where there's all these books that supposedly aren't real anymore, but you still see nods from the legends, stuff getting kind of worked in like this. They still use cool stuff when they want to,
right?
And I'm kind of doing that too. Like, it's so far we have not proven that anything in Dark Horse canon is still around. The problem with the Dark Horse canon is that we didn't know there were going to be more movies, so that there's all this stuff that show the space jockeys,
right? Yeah,
like, as if they're elephant people, and there's all these other things that kind of disprove the films, and so there's all these conflicts now. So if there was going to be one blanket decision, yes or no, it would have to be no. But there's also these really great stories from Alien from a Dark Horse canon that I think could show up again. So there, like, you'll see like the name Grant Corporation get.
Yeah, I was going to say that got thrown in your issues, right?
Yeah, right. And I I do think that I think that comics, like Aliens comic canon and film canon, have to be different. There's things that have been introduced in the comics that have been wildly creative and super rad, but that I don't think quite jive with the world that the films have established. Essentially now, especially now that the prequels are a thing.
Sure.
So concepts like the royal jelly and the the android xenomorph that speaks English and chomps cigars, and like there's things that just would be weird to see in a movie.
I'm just thinking it's almost like alternate realities. You could pull some of the stuff and reinvent it in a way that would, it's like any other revision. So when you pay off long-term fans by including something that has a wink and a smile, even though it's reinvented and reintroduced.
Exactly. Well, that's, I would love to do that. And I do want to. I'm approaching the Marvel thing, not because they wanted me to, but I'm approaching it kind of in a Force Awakens kind of way. And to the extent that I think that we should start from a very familiar place. And before we start to really go wild, I have this idea for an arc that I really want to do, but it's too early now because people will be like, this doesn't look like Alien at all.
Right.
It's something I want to build to, in the long game. So the first one, I've really tried to toe the line between the first two films where we have the world building and the claustrophobic horror of that first one, like you're, in the house, with the thing. But then we also wanted hopefully the character development of the second one, where you got characters you care about and you see the Space Marine, analog characters doing their thing to some extent. I wanted to feel like both those movies kind of thread that needle between both stories, and before we really start to go wilder. And as we get a little more leash and I feel more comfortable getting going out there a little further, I do want to start to play with themes I've seen from other stories. I really, really like Alien Salvation, and I want to, we're exploring a similar theme from that book in the second arc. And there's more stuff coming out soon that I really want to pull from. So yeah, I think to answer Barbara's question, it's technically Dark Horse canon has been wiped, less remnants of Dark Horse have been wiped away, but I don't really believe that in my heart of hearts. And you're going to see cool stuff from the Dark Horse era, come back in the Marvel thing. So those things are not really gone.
Excellent. Well, that's very interesting here. Livio, I'd love to turn to you now and kind of get the artist's perspective on the design of the xenomorph and if that explains the success that it's had in the sequential art medium at all. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously like the monster is like maybe the best science fiction design ever in terms of a creature. It looks so real and threatening. And I think the environment too, like I think the first movie established this great world where, one thing that made the alien so scary is that the corridors of the Nostromo really allow for the alien to be anywhere. There's that famous shot at the end. The entire movie is a famous shot, but at the end where, Ripley doesn't even notice the alien head is right next to her. It looks like the piping. I think is it Alien Isolation, like the video game, did a great job of that too, where every step of the room you walk through, the alien could be present, So I think that's really a great, that I think helps the creature so much, is that every environment looks threatening, So yeah, I think comics lend themselves to that a lot.
It's very true. And that game, Alien Isolation, is fantastic. I get anxiety. I'm such a big fan that it gives me anxiety when I'm in there. I'm just gonna stand in here and just not move at all.
There's so many cool things with that game. There's like a mechanic where if you've got like the camera thing activated, you could literally go like this in the room, and like your character will do that too. Or if there's a sound in your living room, like it'll. The thing will hear you. It's super creepy.
It's crazy. Barbara and Philip, obviously you are individuals who work often with artists. Do you have any thoughts on this topic of the design of the creature and if that helps it succeed as a comic book character?
For me, it's just what I said before. It's that underlying threat and thrill that your genitalia could kill you. That the whole sex and horror braided together.
Yeah, I would say that too. I think that for me, it's all about Giger's work and just ensuring that it always feels like that. And that's, you asked me about the the thing where when they're face hugged, when they're when they have the thing on them, they're kind of like locked into that whole ecosystem. Like they become part of them for that time. And I like the idea. We haven't really heard a lot from people who have been through that and survive, and or like from even before they die.
Right.
Not a lot of interview time for people. And I like the idea that they sometimes have like visions, like they're seeing things that are happening, and like that. You know, some of the first images of the book are from we see this, you know, just this tidal wave of aliens consuming the universe, and part of it is that one creature that everyone flips shit over. That the female looking, like the more humanoid version of it, which is, that was actually my attempt to work in more of Giger's non-xenomorph work. That's very clearly based on the images that he did of Lee Tobler, his late former lover. So yeah, I wanted to use more of Giger's work throughout the book, however we could. So Salva and I drew from other images he did. So for me, it all goes back to Giger. I want that whole story to feel like a Giger painting, or just to hear that creepy dude speak. You know, it's just such a distinct feel to all of his work that I wanted to capture in the book.
Well, one thing that we definitely should touch on, especially in reference to Giger and his creation, Ridley Scott, director of Alien, has sort of famously spoken in several interviews about how he feels that the quote unquote, the beast is cooked, that the xenomorph is no longer scary for audiences because they're too familiar with it now. It needed to keep changing in some manner to keep that horror. And obviously, when we're talking about comics, if this is a true statement, it's even more present because you can study the creature there on the page. It's frozen on the page in the artwork. So it's difficult to maintain that kind of mystery around it. So I would love to hear what each of you think about whether that sentiment is something you agree with, and then how do we want to approach a story like Alien in a sequential art form and maintain that mystery, try to keep the creature scary if it is there sort of in the lights for everyone to see. Livio, I can start with you this time.
Yeah, I mean, I love Ridley Scott, but I do think some of his views on the franchise are incorrect. You know, like I would give James Cameron the edge on world building, where I think just the idea of the alien queen was such a great addition to that universe, where it's like it doesn't take away anything from the first movie. He just asked the question like, what's laying these eggs? So I think James Cameron 100% could expand the world out further, still including the xenomorph. Whereas I think Ridley is definitely stuck in, there was the first movie and there's nothing since until you know? You can just feel that he doesn't really honor anything that was made after. So yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. I mean, I think you're right. There wouldn't be such a hunger for more xenomorphs if people were over it, you know? And I think it just takes someone like a James Cameron to kind of expand out ask that question, you know?
Barbara, what are your thoughts on keeping the creature scary in comics?
Well, after the first movie, you can't do another reveal scare because people do know it already, but then you have suspense, you have chase, you have point of view, you have things like what Philip has talked about. The idea of having the point of view of the person with the face hugger is wonderful. So it's how you do your storytelling. You know, you could apply the same thing to Batman. People have seen Batman, they've seen a Batman story, so they don't want to see another one. Well, no, you get fresh takes on it and fresh visual approaches to it. And mostly, you know, a writer putting you into a situation where you're viewing it a little bit differently. So, you know, Ridley's world is small.
From an editor's perspective, is that something that you feel usually comes from the writer or creator pitching you different takes on it, or is it something where the editorial staff have more input on how to maintain that or change things as you go forward?
That all depends. I mean, I come from an era where the editor was very strongly involved in story and very strongly working with people and often dictating sort of the parameters of, you know, the basics of what the story was going to be about. At Dark Horse, Mike Richardson and Randy Stradley were very involved in, and Chris Warner too, pitching story ideas, story direction. We had in-house talks about what would happen. That didn't mean an outside pitch couldn't come in and fit into all of that. But I don't have current experience on working on a licensed title like these.
Sure. Philip, what are your thoughts on keeping the creature scary? Obviously, you're the one attempting to do this right now. So
Yeah.
how are you approaching it?
I mean, I see what it really means by that. I agree to a certain extent that, well, like Barbara said, like it's been revealed, so you can't just do the Kane scene over and over again and expect it to always have the same effect. But I mean, Giger's Alien, the challenge is that Giger's Alien has become such a mainstay in popular culture to the point that we've seen it parodied by various, you know, animated kid shows and all, you know, you see it everywhere. It's everywhere. Everyone's seen it.
Sure.
And so we can't rely on that traditional xenomorph design and reveal to shock readers the way it once did, but that's still what readers and viewers want, right? I mean, I myself want to read the new Alien books and see the new Alien films and shows and to get, you know, recapture that same magic. So it falls on the storytellers to, you know, to find creative ways to recapture that feeling. And I think there's a lot of ways to do it. I mean, that concept that was confirmed in Alien 3 about the, you know, individual physical characteristics coming from the hosts and all that opened up just a world of possibilities that we can keep exploring. It gave the aliens that fluidity I talked about. That's why they're perfect. And I mean, Ridley Scott himself did that in Prometheus and Covenant, right? Like we're seeing, I mean, no two varieties of the aliens have to be the same. And even when we got closer to the traditional xenomorph that he showed us in Covenant, there's still different enough. It's like we got to see new versions of the dinner scene that he's still trying to make us gag that same way, right? Like, backburster this time, and we saw come out, you know, mouth and like and still have it be recognizable as Alien and not have the fans freak out that's not what they love, but still make it different enough that they shock people in new ways. There's a scene, I think issue 3 in our run, where we see Gabriel Cruz's old buddy who's got one in him, and we see that one born in a fun new way. So yeah, we're just trying to find ways to shock people that recapture the feeling of that first story, and still give them something they recognize. So it's definitely a challenge. Just each story is going to get harder and harder to recapture that same holy crap moment that we got so many of in that first movie. But it doesn't mean you can't do it.
Well, it's also a haunted house problem. People know you're going to scare them. You know, they're not coming in cold. They know you're going to scare them, surprise them, shock them. They just don't necessarily know how. So the trick is being the clever house builder.
Yeah,
Very
be
true.
clever in how you hide it, and just, you know, and escalate. Find ways to escalate without jumping the shark.
I think comics too allow so much kind of visual exploration. Like in the Batman Aliens crossover, Bernie Wrightson drew this. There's a great spread of a face with God on a crocodile. So you have a crocodile alien, and it's this massive beast that Batman fights. And I just remember loving that idea so much. Of, you know, the movies hint at it, and you see a dog alien, Alien 3, but yeah, the concept of what would it look like if it got on a ton of different life forms is a really cool idea.
Well, I would love to ask all of you, and Philip, I know that you might need to be a little more reserved on your answer with this, because I don't want to spoil anything coming up. But I would love to get some opinions on if you each had a say in where these comics were heading for the next, say, 5 years. What ideas you might have, what direction you think should be explored that either hasn't been explored enough, or if there's some other concept that you have. But I would just love to hear your thoughts. Livio, why don't you go ahead and take that first?
I mean, my answer would have been prior to Prometheus and Alien Covenant is like, what does the alien homeworld look like? You know, because we were sort of promised all these years that they're this species that exists on their own. I think I like Prometheus and Alien Covenant for what they are, but I do dislike the notion that aliens were created by a robot that was created by man. I think that makes the universe very, very small to me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I just more in general, like I know the original concept for Alien 3 that Vincent Ward had was like this monk planet with this Hieronymus Bosch type, you know, wildlife, and what would the aliens look like in that kind of environment, I think would be really cool. So just more stuff like that, I think.
Barbara, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't know. I'd probably put Alien and Avatar together and get
Okay.
you know, some kind of weird jungle thing going on. I would play more probably with other alien worlds just to break the box of the spaceship. But you've got to come back and refer to that. You've got to loop back to the original material, or you're losing it's like a musical theme that you've got to come back to, or else you lose the thread of it being connected.
Makes a lot of sense. Philip, do you want to say anything, or do you want to just hold off on this,
No,
this question?
I'm happy to. I mean, for the situation that the comics are in at this moment, in which the licenses just change hands, and we're trying to tie the canon stories together into one universe, you know, the games and the show coming out soon and all that. The North Star for me so far has been to try to treat the Marvel comics as belonging in the same universe as the films. I think that is one course correction from the Dark Horse books. I thought the Dark Horse was just this amazing like font of creativity, and you can just do anything, and there's these incredible stories that came out of that, but they don't feel like the movies did. It was like as Barbara said, it was very, I guess, different, like a parallel universe. It just doesn't feel the same, but super cool. And now the challenge is to make the comics feel like the movies do, so that it all, you know, it's all regarded as, you know, capital T true. So I basically right now I'm treating each arc as a film. Like I want these to belong on the shelf next to the films and to feel just like those movies do. Not in a way that's limiting, but in a way that for me feels like a creative challenge. I'm trying to make them feel like the movies without being beholden to the characters. And actually I totally agree with what Livio said about the how, you know, if David made these things, then that makes the aliens a very young thing and a very small thing and all that. And I don't feel fettered by that. Like, I mean, somebody at some point was railing against the Silmarillion about this, like where it gives us all the origins of that of Middle Earth, and like see where everything began, and kind of limits the whole thing. Like if you do that, if you answer the big age-old mysteries, then you have to introduce a new mystery behind that one too, right? Otherwise, you just made your box that you can't ever get out of. For me, I've always seen the alien as this this unknowable cosmic thing that's just out there waiting for any species to get intelligent enough to raise its head up, and then it gets us there to knock us down again. Like it's this thing that keeps the universe clean of sentient life, basically, that's been out there for unknowable billions of years. And I still think it can be that. Like we think that from Prometheus, we assume that the engineers made that the accelerant, that goo that they use to create life and destroy life, but we don't know that. Maybe they found it. You know, it's something that for me, that is now the unknowable fire, is that stuff that they use to make the alien. And because I mean, in that room, I forget there's a name, I can't remember what they called it, but the room where all those little urns are, where David finds that stuff initially, there's the big bas relief on the wall that show the Deacon, like basically a xenomorph on the wall, which means they're familiar with the comic already. And who knows how long that's been around. So even before David, they already know what they can do with this shit. And who knows how long they had it, where they found it. So for me, that's the truth behind the mystery now. I think that should still be explored in future stories, hopefully. And that's not a spoiler. That's not coming anytime soon. That's just something I would like to explore myself. I don't feel limited by the prequels.
Excellent. Well, I would love to wrap up by just touching on Fanbase Press's Stories Matter initiative. This is just one of the staples of our company. When we're discussing stories, we like to take a look at them through the perspective they play within human culture and the reason they exist. Obviously, there is a entertainment factor to the alien stories, whether in film or comics. They scare us, they thrill us, but what do they tell us about us is what I would love to ask each of you. Is there something that we can take away about the human experience or the human condition from these stories, whether they are in the film version or the comic book version? Barbara, I'll go to you first this time.
I would say generally across the board, no matter how big the danger is, we can survive.
That's a great one. Philip, how about you? What do you think?
Man, that's a big question. I think, I mean, one of the reasons the first two movies are so great is there's so many things you can take, well, all of them really, like how you can take from it what you will almost. Like it's about corporations versus common man and how corporations are inherently evil. Or it's about family. You know, the second movie is all about like Ripley discovering her family again, building this new family around herself when her own daughter is lost. Or the prequel has become the story about the creation of life, about our relationship with technology versus organic life and our own children, and where we come, questions about where we come from. It's all there. There's so many questions. It's such a versatile story, the way that the aliens are versatile. And I love these big, heavy questions in the context of horror. So yeah, for me, it's this thing that you can do anything with.
Excellent. Livio, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's like, kind of I talked about it earlier, but like the notion that a lot of science fiction is optimistic and Alien is very sort of ominous and sinister, and it's kind of what we are afraid of that's out there, And I think that universe too has such a great way of making, excuse me, like every aspect feel threatening. So in the first movie, it's not just the alien; it's their employers are also threatening. Their ship is threatening. It's like there is nothing in that universe that's like warm and cuddly. And if you get a lovable newt, she's gonna be dead in the next movie. It's like there's nothing like. I think that universe is so good about making you uncomfortable, So
You were the monsters all along.
Yeah, it's true.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And I tell you, one of the things the first two really push is the power of motherhood, whether it's a cat or a girl,
Totally.
Yeah.
Very true. Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you. This has been a fantastic discussion. And I definitely want to let everyone watching know where they can find you and your work online. So we'll go back around one more time just to get that information. Barbara, why don't you start us off?
One side note, I love the fact that we all have bookcases behind us and you're not even seeing my bookcase wall.
Oh, excellent.
You can find me. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook under my name. I have a website that's mostly a portal for people to send me emails. I am the world's worst person at social media presence because I'm busy ignoring my computer half the time.
Well, hopefully the convention scene returns soon and we're able to see each other in person. Philip, where can people find you online?
You can check out my website at philipkennedyjohnson.com. It's 2 L's in Philip. You can see any late breaking news regarding stuff I've got coming up. From there, you can link to my social media. I'm on Facebook under my full name, Twitter at Philip K. Johnson, Instagram at Philip_Kennedy_Johnson. Yep.
And obviously pre-order that Alien comic series. They're only 4 issues in, so people can definitely catch up.
Yeah, dude.
Livio, where can people find you and your work online?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at just Livio Ramondelli. A lot of nerd drawings on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. So yeah, I'm there.
Excellent.
Nerd drawings are the best.
Yep.
They're pretty amazing. I'm blown away continuously by your work, Livio.
Oh, thank you.
People should tune in and check it out.
Thank you.
Well, I would be able to talk about this for at least 3 more hours with all of you, but unfortunately we are reaching the end of our time. And once again, I do want to say thank you to our amazing panelists and to the viewers watching. Barbara, Philip, and Livio, this was a fantastic look into one of my favorite topics. So thank you really for joining me today.
Thank you for setting this up. Yeah.
Excellent. And as a reminder to our viewers, if you enjoyed this panel, you can find more content like this available at fanbasepress.com, and be sure to check out our podcast, the Fanbase Weekly. We do a lot of Fanbase features discussing topics like this all the time, every couple of weeks. So definitely tune in. Once again, this has been Bryant Dillon for Fanbase Press, where we celebrate fandoms and create new ones. Thank you for your support.
Hi, I'm Marielle.
And I'm Simon.
And we're from Blue Fox Comics. Founded in 2015, we've grown to become a successful publisher of distinct, character-driven, high-quality comics and graphic novels.
From slice of life through sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and many, many more, we have genres to suit everyone of all ages. All our titles can be found on our website, bluefoxcomics.com, in both physical and digital formats, with low-cost shipping worldwide from our base in Linlithgow, Scotland.
Blue Fox Comics are very proud to sponsor Fanbase Press's 2021 Virtual Celebrating Fandoms Week. Have a great day.